Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Terrence Duncan, and I want to discuss the fifth of 8 modules of the Dissertation Journey, Module 5. We're going to look at elaborating the research questions, and the title of this module is Elaborating Research Questions for Doctoral Research. The objectives for this particular module includes the following. We're going to be connecting the what, which is the problem statement, and the why, which is the purpose statement, to the how, which involves the research questions. We're going to look at the FINER method, and we're going to integrate the FINER method in research question development. We're going to remove ambiguity in research question development, as well as continuing the alignment of the problem statement and the overall intent of the study. As you may recall from Module 4, some of the key points that was emphasized is that we discussed how the problem statement explains the what, the purpose statement details the why of the proposed study, the statement of opinions versus the problem statement. We looked at that in understanding that statement of opinions are not necessarily grounded in academic research and that it could be easily refutable. We also discussed identifying elements of a problem statement. We recognized and avoided bias in problem statement development. We talk about avoiding bias as far as the methodology is concerned, but often students do not understand that there could be potential bias in developing the problem statement. We also discussed the responsible research and innovation technique, as well as understanding the role of scholar practitioners. Initial dissertation alignment. Throughout this entire dissertation journey, up to the first 4 to 5 modules, this is the 5th module, we talked about alignment. And so when you are looking at the alignment, always remember the problem statement is the foundation of a home, something that I've repeated module after module. And I just want to reiterate that because the foundation of the home helps hold the frame, and the rest of the design of the house is not adequate unless you have the appropriate foundation. The purpose statement provides the why the study is designed in the manner that it is. So when you're looking at the problem statement and then you're breaking it down a little bit further, you're actually explaining why this particular study is necessary and why you're using this particular methodology in addressing how to conduct your overall study toward addressing the problem statement. Alignment, and we talk about it over and over again, but here it is again. Alignment is necessary to properly craft a problem statement, as well as understanding the desired methodology path. And guess what? It will be discussed again in developing research questions. And here it is, alignment challenges with research questions. Alignment issues can affect the rest of the dissertation. The problem statement and the purpose statement must be connected, as well as the research questions must continue the purpose of ongoing alignment. Action research provides opportunities to correct and sustain alignment. So basically what this is saying is that you have your problem statement, you have your purpose statement. How is it connected? Your alignment. I use this, the car swerving danger sign basically as a metaphor for students who may struggle with their study, and a lot of it is based on their problem statement and their purpose statement not being aligned. And so one of the best ways to go about doing so is to continue to conduct action research. Does the research provide the appropriate alignment between the problem statement and the purpose statement? If you're able to do that, that caution sign that you see with the car driving on the road, that road becomes more narrow and more straight, and you have less obstacles along your way. The FINER approach to research, Rattan et al., 2019, conducted a study, and they were examining different approaches to developing a research questions. And I thought it was appropriate for this particular module. And they developed what there was the FINER maps approach, but we're only going to focus on the FINER. If you want to read more about the FINER approach or the FINER maps approach, it's the reference is at the end of the slides. And is that actually a good read? And something I would really recommend keeping, as it actually helps detail how to develop your research questions appropriately. But anyways, the FINER approach involves several steps, and the F stands for feasibility, the I stands for interesting, the N stands for novel, the E stands for ethical, and the R stands for relevant. So to break down what FINER is by Rattan et al., Feasibility. Is the research realistic in terms of scale and scope of the project? Are you developing something that is relatively realistic, or are you developing something that is so complex that you lose precious time or resources or cost, depending on whether you're doing a dissertation or if you're doing research outside the scope of academics or traditional university doctoral settings? Is it realistic? Are you able to really do this particular type of study? Interesting. Are the questions backed up in academic and intellectual debate? Meaning that if somebody asked you, what is your study about? And they're asking what kind of research questions did you involve? You're more likely not going to run into those type of debates unless you run into academic conferences, or you're having this conversation with your dissertation mentor, your chair, or just other colleagues in the field. But one of the challenges for some students involves, are the questions interesting enough? Are the questions asking something that can spark additional conversation, debate itself, or even additional literature review? The novelty. When you're looking down at the finer concept, are we confirming or refuting existing findings? Are we establishing new facts? And are the research questions simple and clear? So if you are working on a study that has been basically, the can kicked down the road over and over and over again, are you part of that particular line where you're kicking the can down the road, or are you the person that's going to pick the can up and you're going to put the can somewhere else down the road and say, hey, we're going to look at this at a different angle? Ethical. Ethical, the ethical part of finer involves the receiving the appropriate approval from the appropriate authorities. More often than not, it's going to come from the IRB. And relevant. Is the research interesting, and is it intellectual to those in the field of study? And does it contribute and provide new insights to existing problems being solved or introduced? So that kind of goes back to the interesting, the I part of finer. Is the research relevant? Are you providing something substantial at the conclusion of your research? And does your research questions help contribute to the relevancy of your proposed study? Some questions to consider during the development of your research questions. What is the existing phenomenon or rules out something theoretically? So if you're looking at a qualitative particular type of study, what kind of existing phenomenon are you looking at exploring, or are you looking at from a quantitative standpoint, whether or not the hypotheses are going to align with the research questions? This is a little bit more of a quantitative area, the relationship between the variables or the association between two events, as well as causality. What is the causal connection between the two events, or what is the causal connection to your findings to the problem statement? How to develop a research question. Some of the questions that you can, and statements that you should consider or ask include, does the research question remove any ambiguity? Are the research questions clear and focused? How is the research question measurable and related to the problem and purpose statements? Can the proposed research question be too narrow or too broad? And does the research question provide progressive research responses or repeats known information, meaning does not significantly provide contribution to the field? Kind of goes back to kicking a can down the road analogy. Got to avoid ambiguity, not only during your conceptual framework, your theoretical framework, or the problem statement, but even when you're developing your research questions in itself. And if you're writing a study of this nature for the first time, ambiguity will always crop its head up during the process, and you want to remove that as often as possible. When you provide a study, and especially if you're in a business, a particular business industry where there may not be a lot of experience from your chair or your mentor, the chair or the mentor should be able to look at the study and be able to relate, does this literature match with this particular research question? Does this research question match with the conceptual framework that you're trying to strive to achieve? And does that also address the purpose statement? And does it address the problem statement? And as you see, it's a broad overview of alignment, but by the end of the day, all these different elements that are contained in a dissertation, you have to remove ambiguity, and it has to be clear and concise. So some of the ways that I noted how to avoid ambiguity is to avoid purely stated questions, understand as to whether or not the scope of the research is too narrow. If you are doing a quantitative study, what relationship questions are being addressed? And if you're doing a qualitative study, what questions can help the researcher understand the depths of the problem? Some other statements, questions that you can ask while you're developing a research question involves continuing to practice and writing your research questions. That's very basic, but practice makes perfect. And if you are actually developing your research questions for the first time, you're more than likely not going to knock it out the box the first time. So you want to try to just practice, 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 and then go back to see if your research question aligns with the problem statement and the purpose statement. And if there is alignment, then you more likely have a sufficiently developed research question. If not, just continue to work, continue going to the drawing board and conduct your action research. You need to seek to know the unknowns. You need to know the known knowns and understand the potential unknown unknowns. And that's not from Pulp Fiction, but they actually heard that phrase in Pulp Fiction, but you heard it also from Larson and Anderson 2015 in their study when they're talking about developing a research question. And another area to consider involves, are your research questions narrow in scope too much that it will marginalize the study, and it provides cognitive limits in completing a study by pursuing 2005. That concludes this particular module involving research questions. Next module, we'll start looking a little bit more at the quantitative methodology and qualitative methodology and how that aligns with your problem statement, how it aligns with your purpose statement, and how it aligns with your research questions. Dr. Duncan just wanted to share some more tips and notes for those who are seeking to improve their dissertation or just trying to understand the dissertation process for the first time. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing any kind of questions or concerns you may have.